TopMedTalk. Hi, it's Monty Mythen here, Editor-in-Chief of TopMedTalk. I'm here at the TopMedTalk studios in London, in Brentford, in sunny West London, joined by the Managing Editor of TopMedTalk, hot in from the USA, Desiree Chappell. Desiree, how are you?
Hi, Monty. I'm great.
Actually, to be honest, you arrived yesterday, didn't you?
I did. I did, but it feels like I just arrived. No, it's still adjusting. No, it's awesome to be in our home base, in the studio.
So here we are. So we did our Christmas special at your house
in Louisville.
Yeah. which was turned out to be very, very popular. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We went over yesterday that our predictions about how Christmas would be for the Chappell family turned out to be true.
Yeah, it was great.
Bundles of joy and laughter.
Oh, tons.
Now, this is
tons of fun.
This is our New Year's special. So what we're doing here is we're getting in a number of different guests.
Yeah.
Regulars on TopMedTalk, surprise turns, and we're going to be asking them their predictions for 2020. Yeah. So we've managed to drag in. He was actually passing on the motorway.
On my way to work in Southampton.
just popped in.
Some important meeting in London and getting back to Southampton. The wonderful Professor Mike Grocott. Mike, how are you?
I'm very good. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, Mike. Happy New Year. Do you have a good Christmas period? Very
good. Typical family, busy, but everybody feeling a lot better for the break.
Home?
Yeah.
The whole time?
Home, extended family.
Yeah.
Including new members of the family that are incoming, but I won't disclose further. But
congratulations!
We're going to have a wedding this year, but probably
right. Well, we can talk about that.
We can come back to that.
We're not going to talk about politics. We're not going to talk about the B word, but we are going to ask you about your predictions for 2020. So far on the list, we have.
Prehabilitation.
Yeah. We have
enhanced recovery. It's an oldie but goodie.
An oldie but goodie that it might actually happen, which we already talked about with Simon Davis yesterday. We can look back on that.
Yeah.
We talked about
AI and closed loop systems.
Yeah, fly-by-wire and that sort of whole idea. And we teased a little bit about the fact that the gut
is back in business. I don't know.
And that's not a Christmas post-pound thing. That's the fact it's the gut as the motor of post-operative morbidity is going to be a hot topic for this year, we think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Mike Grocott, go for it.
What do you think?
I'm with you on prehab. We had a lot last year, but I think there's going to be a lot more this year.
Yep.
I'm going to obviously share my personal biases. I think the oxygen therapy story will continue to grow. I think there's going to be both publications and I suspect new studies kicking off.
Okay.
I think in the perioperative space, shared decision making and work around that, and I think particularly. So Rupert Pearce's Osiris grant in the UK, it's a big programme grant working alongside the Centre for Perioperative Care. I think there could be quite a lot there. I think they're going to be reaching out to people to get input on that.
Oh, that's exciting.
I guess more away from the clinical domain, I think, and this is partly UK perspective, kind of first week back in the new year, the things I've been drawn into. I think the whole notion of acute care, looking at the commonalities between the acute, typically craft specialties, say surgery, anaesthesia, critical care, trauma, injuries, emergencies, all that kind of stuff. I think that will become more important as we try and stack ourselves up against the big, well-funded research specialties. And I suspect, are we allowed to mention Brexit? You said we weren't allowed to mention Brexit.
Well, okay.
Ish.
So, I suspect that given that it looks at it like it's going to happen, we will move on to more domestic policy issues, and the current government here seems to have pinned their colours to the NHS mast.
Yes.
And given the advisors around the elected officials, I think we might see some pretty radical stuff going on.
Well, for the final one, we hope that will happen.
Which I think is good. I think we need, the usual story: scarce resources, ever increasing demand. I think there'll be lots of interesting ideas around who does what, sort of role displacement.
So we're going to write that one down and pin that on the board, and we're going to come back next year and we're going to discuss that in detail. And hopefully it'll be a champagne moment.
Good. Hopefully not a sham moment.
We hope we're not rubbing your nose in it, which we wouldn't do. But let's pray for that one. That would be great.
I think that could be very exciting. Yeah.
Let's pick them off. Top three. So Prehab came straight in yesterday. There's a lot about it in the media over Christmas. We had a big year on prehabilitation last year because you brought a meeting to London.
So we had the World Congress came to London, and it's this year, 2020 is going off to Barcelona, and then to Australia in 2021. That's all laid out. So exciting opportunity at the end of May, early June to go to the World Congress of Prehabilitation alongside the ESA in Barcelona.
Well, you might, Mike, because a lot of people don't understand. Can you tell us just a little bit more about what the World Congress for Prehabilitation is?
So it's a meeting that acquired a possibly over grand title early on when about 70 people met in Canada, and then went to Holland, the Netherlands, and then came over to London last year. So it's in its fourth iteration this year, going to Barcelona, and is living up to its name. There's a queue of centres around the world that seem keen to do it. It's interesting how the number of countries that are engaged in the clinical activity and engaged in doing research. So I think that will be very exciting. I think it's interesting placing it against the European Society of Anaesthesiology, seeing how much traction that will bring. And the Congress itself is run by the International Prehab Society, which was launched last year, and I think will also be gathering momentum. I know there are meetings springing up in the United States this year, and I think there are also meetings in Australia this year. So there's a feeling of momentum and a remarkably rapid spread certainly of the ideas, and I think the same is happening in the research perspective, and it's arguably being overcome in the clinical perspective. There's so much enthusiasm for it that it's one of those areas where we risk going straight into clinical.
So we'll get this in the show notes, Mike. So the Prehab World Congress, Barcelona.
Yep.
Is that just before the European Society of Anaesthesia?
Exactly,
Barcelona?
end of May.
End of May, early June. And the first one in the USA is in North Carolina, I think.
There's a meeting in North Carolina in June.
Which will also be at about the same time. There'll be a CPET training course there, isn't
That's right, yep.
And more detail on that coming shortly?
Yep, that'll be coming through the EdPom website.
Going live very soon, so we'll get that in the show notes as well. Sorry to cut you off on that, but I know a lot of people will be interested.
Well, Mike, one of the questions that I have for you, because you're kind of the prehab man, what does prehabilitation mean to you? Because I think that was some of the discussions that we were having with Simon yesterday, that the general ideas of it maybe are thought to be in just the exercise domain, but I think prehab means more than that.
No, so the framework that I have for the key things that we do before surgery, which involve both assessment and intervention, there's the shared decision-making piece. So let's work out if this is a good idea, and let's work out how it fits in with your life. There's the management of long-term conditions, which we typically call comorbidity management. So they're usually medical, but it might be procedural management of chronic heart condition, lung conditions, diabetes, anemia. And then there's the prehabilitation, which I think is practically different because it's largely about behaviours, lifestyle, if you like, and how we can assess and modify those, again, largely through behavioural modifications as opposed to pharmacological or procedural modifications. So I think there's no doubt that the language has been confused, but I think drawing that distinction is helpful because of the way patients think about things and because of the way we manage the particular problems. So the prehabilitation area encompasses exercise, nutrition, psychology, the behaviour change techniques that facilitate changes in those areas, and smoking cessation, alcohol cessation or minimisation, which typically are well supported in most places because there's established programs that have nothing to do with perioperative care, but there's an important signposting job to do there.
So the getting into the gym and having a personal trainer beast you that's not prehab. It may be a component for prehab for some people, but it's the holistic preparation thing.
It's a holistic preparation. The framework we used in the Macmillan Royal College of Anaesthetists NIHR document was around screening, assessment and intervention, and the notion of universal, targeted and then specialist intervention. So everybody should get sensible advice, the kind of WHO amount of exercise per week. Some folk will have an augmented level, which might be a personal trainer in a gym helping them out, and a small number will need really specialist intervention with healthcare professionals guiding their exercise or nutrition or psychological change.
So if you're new to TopMedTalk or you're new to Prehabilitation and you want to know more, if you go either into our website, but I find it easier in our app, or in a podcatcher. If you go into a search engine and you put in Prehabilitation or even Prehab, you'll get a long list of lectures, of discussions, of all these various elements from multiple experts around the world. It's a fantastic resource. So Prehab. Next, Mike, you were saying on your list, oxygen therapy. Remind us about the one. Again, you can put that into the search engine on TopMedTalk. You'll get all these discussions. Is supplementary oxygen, a good thing or a bad thing?
Oxygen therapy, the whole Goldilocks story. Can we give too much? Is too much harmful? And I think we're all comfortable with not enough can be harmful under some circumstances, but we may tend towards giving too much because we're used to setting a lower level. So we typically set a pulse oximetry number, say 95, which means there's no ceiling, but there's a clear floor.
So when you go into a hospital, the images you always see, the sort of two ubiquitous treatments are you get an IV put in a drip, someone hangs a bag of fluid, because you might need to be hydrated, and they put on an oxygen mask, because traditionally the feeling was if your oxygen levels are low, we might as well treat everyone to try and make sure that no one's oxygen levels are low. But there's some potential harm. It doesn't mean everyone should be pulling off their oxygen masks.
Not at all. But there is a lot of data suggesting that excess oxygen may be harmful, both in terms of primary studies and systematic reviews. So I think it's a very reasonable question to argue what is the right level, what's the just right, the Goldilocks level under different circumstances. And I suspect that in the long term that won't be a simple high-low. It's going to be personalised in the same way that we think about personalised, individualised fluid therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you stand in the States on that at the moment, Desiree? Do you think that people are starting to be more oxygen aware, or have you been there, or it's kind of,
Yeah, I think it's I think there was a movement really in the last couple of years with some of the SSI stuff that people were starting to talk. They're starting to talk about it more.
The SSI stuff, they were suggesting you give crazy high levels.
I know,
of oxygen.
and that's what I was going to say. That it's interesting because I think that the pendulum is it's swinging all over the place. It's not from one end to the other. It's everywhere. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Will we see some study results coming out this year, Mike? I think we might see some.
There'll be some study results this year, and I think there'll be some big studies around that people will be able to engage with.
That'll be great.
This closed loop thing, that's an area crying out for it.
Yeah, actually.
We were talking yesterday about the fly-by-wire, because we tend to put the pulse oximeter on the finger, the finger probe that gives the oxygen number, ask people to turn the oxygen up and down to keep it in a sort of narrow bandwidth. You just can't do that. You can't keep up with it. The computers would be so much better at that.
Yeah.
It's a real opportunity.
Completely agree.
Next one, Mike. You got one. You got to choose out of the other ones. You're allowed one because you're only allowed a top three. We heard the other things. We hear you, brother.
I'm really interested about what's going to happen politically in the UK.
We've given you that as a freebie.
Okay. I've had that. Okay,
that's a freebie.
So I've got to come up with another one.
One more,
because we're going to come back to that one in greater detail. You mentioned the shared decision making, which I think overlaps with the sort of pandemic of post-operative morbidity and complications.
Absolutely. If I can play my joker, great meeting that you and I are both going to be attending in Adelaide at the beginning of March, organised by Guy Ludbrook, about the epidemic of post-operative harm, which I think he's doing some great work down in Australia, highlighting.
I think his article in the BJA, which you can put in the show notes as well, as the pandemic, the silent pandemic, which I thought expressed it really well.
Yeah, great job highlighting that the scope of the problem and therefore the need for solutions to that problem, and I think some really good policy engagement there, and I suspect we will be learning from that and bringing some of that back to the UK.
Excellent. So great top three, Mike. Thank you very much for giving up your time. Hope you're going to see plenty of you on TopMedTalk. See plenty of you on TopMedTalk.
We do video.
You go in video.
We do video.
And hearing plenty of you on TopMedTalk
Yes.
as well. And you've been a great help, great supporter.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for having
And
me.
we're going to be at Anaesthesia 2020. Tell us a little bit about it, Mike, the annual
Excellent.
meeting of the Royal College of Anaesthetists.
In Manchester
Yeah.
Yep. Which is
in May.
town in England. Is that right?
It's a city in England,
City in England.
where I was born. Very special city. So in Manchester in late May, great meeting. That meeting is going from strength to strength, so ever larger each year, and a really good lineup of speakers and sessions this year.
Thanks very much indeed for coming. Good luck with your year. Big plans for you? Anything particular? I know there's a long list.
The main plan is to keep the show on the road this year, rationalise jobs.
I thought you were running a marathon, the London
Yeah, I
Marathon.
do have a marathon to run. Yeah, so April the 26th.
Squeeze that one in there.
April the 26th.
Will there be a Just Giving website somewhere when
There
it comes
will be a
out,
Just
goes
Giving
live?
website, which is going to go live in a couple of days' time. I was going to put it live 100 days before, so it's about a week away, I think, 10 days away.
Good man. Good
I'll let
man,
you know all about
good
it.
Man. We'll give our few pennies into that when we can find them.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Great to see you.
Thanks, Mike.
And you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
TopMedTalk.
It's Desiree Chappell here. Just a quick reminder, subscribe to TopMedTalk. We're a daily source of news and conversation focused on perioperative care. We bring you all the latest talk from all the major conferences in the perioperative space. We can also be found on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we now have a free mailing list with special offers and additional goodies for subscribers. Go check us out at topmedtalk.com. That's www.topmedtalk.com.